The weak don't die because of the enemy. They die because of the wrong moment of silence. No one warns you when they decide to break you. No knocking, no asking if you're ready. It comes like a glass falling onto stone, shattering in an instant, with no way back. Have you ever lived that moment, when someone disappears, without a single warning? Most will kneel, cry, beg, but not you. Not if you want to survive. Not if you want to become dangerous. The world does not value your kindness. It only watches to see how easy you are to bring down. One time, you step back to keep the peace. They will think you will always step back. One time, you explain yourself to defend. They will see you fear losing approval. And once they understand, you will never take the initiative back again. Imagine if tomorrow everything you have vanished. Money, status, relationships, gone overnight. What would you do? If the people you trust most turned their backs, how would you react? Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan, until they get punched in the face. That punch can come from the place you least expect. A handshake that's no longer warm, a message left unanswered, a word twisted in a crowd. Have you ever taken such a punch? And when it came, did you stand back up or let it crush you?" Machiavelli does not speak to those who are comfortable. He speaks to those who have been betrayed, abandoned, thrown into the dark, because he knows that's the moment the real game of power begins. When darkness swallows you, don't scream. Sit still. Observe. Let the storm pass. And let them see you are still standing. If you've ever been knocked down, but came back stronger, remember that feeling. Because right now, we will dissect how to turn it into a weapon. There are two kinds of people who walk into a room. The first comes in with a smile, shakes hands with everyone, trying to seem approachable. The second walks in slowly, doesn't rush to speak, eyes scanning the room as if reading an open book. And the entire room goes quiet for a beat. Which one are you? And more importantly, which one do you want others to feel you are? For most of your life, you've been taught to belong to the first type, to be humble, likable, friendly, to be accepted. And yes, it will open some doors, but it's also exactly what makes it easy to push you out at any moment. Think back to the last time you tried to win someone over. You texted them first. You agreed with them, even when you didn't want to. You defended yourself when misunderstood. You thought you were building a relationship. But what did they see? Someone easy to read and control. Napoleon once said, "People will respect you more when they're not sure what you'll do next." This doesn't mean you should be fake mysterious. It means you must learn to make people think twice before stepping toward you. Imagine you're a newly appointed manager. On your first day, you want to be liked, so you keep your door open all day, smiling at everyone who comes in. After just a month, people start coming in to ask for time off, for changes, for special treatment, because they know you'll have a hard time saying no. When you finally start saying no, they feel you've changed. But in reality, you've just realized you've been losing your power. Now, flip the script. It's still you, but on day one, you walk into the meeting room. You greet everyone with confident eyes. Your voice is slow and clear. You listen more than you speak. You don't respond immediately to requests. Instead, you say, "I'll think about it and get back to you." After a few days, people start to choose their words carefully before approaching you. That's when you control the frame. History has proven this as well. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic leader, often entered the council without saying a word for the first few minutes. He let his generals debate, reveal all their positions, and only then would he speak. When he did, every word carried the weight of a command. You see, power doesn't come from being harsh or soft. It comes from setting the standard and protecting it with consistent behavior. The same is true in personal life. If your partner knows, you will always text first. Always be the one to soothe after an argument. They will gradually value your presence less. But if you know when to be silent, when to walk away, they will think carefully before pushing you to the limit. Have you ever tried staying silent during an argument, just to watch the other person's reaction? You'll be surprised to see how that silence unsettles them. Next time you walk into a room, watch how people react to you. Do they try to take over your space? Or do they adjust to fit your presence? The difference between the two is the gap between an ordinary person and someone in control. You've been taught your whole life that silence is weakness, that you must speak up to protect yourself. But Machiavelli saw silence as a dagger hidden in your sleeve. No one sees it until it's too late. There are two types of silence. One comes from fear, when you don't know what to say or you're afraid to offend. The other comes from control, when you know exactly what you want to say, but choose not to, so others are left to interpret. Which one do you think makes people more cautious? In a meeting, when criticized, most people will react immediately. That's not true, let me explain. But those who know how to play the power game will simply smile. They let that space hang in the air, forcing others to guess. With every passing second, the pressure shifts from you to them. I remember a story from politics. In 1988, during a live debate, George H.W. Bush was accused by his opponent of bending the law to receive campaign funding. Instead of responding right away, he just looked at his opponent, held silence for a few seconds, then moved on to a completely different topic. The next day, the press wasn't talking about the accusation anymore. They were debating why he stayed silent. And while the public was still speculating, he had already taken full control of the conversation. How would you react if you were accused in front of millions? Defend yourself immediately, or let your silence throw your opponent off balance. In personal life, this principle works just as well. A friend asks, "Why have you been so quiet lately?" You don't need a long explanation. Just smile. There are things that don't need to be said to be understood. The other person will start digging. They'll look for the reason. And in the process, they'll realize the value of your presence. Military history has also used strategic silence as a weapon. General von Nguyen, before the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, suddenly ordered all troops to withdraw from their siege positions. The French forces were confused, sleepless, unsure of what the next move would be. When they let their guard down, the Viet Minh returned, launching the decisive attack. Strategic silence is the reversal of natural instinct. Your natural instinct wants you to react immediately to relieve the pressure. But when you learn to endure the empty space, you turn yourself into a mirror for others to look into. And they don't just see your reflection, they see everything they fear most. Loss of control. Remember, words are capital. Every time you speak, you're spending from your account of credibility. The wise only spend when the return is guaranteed to outweigh the cost. So, next time you're provoked, ask yourself, will answering now move me forward or just satisfy a passing emotion? If the answer is the latter, swallow it. Let your silence become the echo in their mind. A cold strategy begins with one principle. Never let others see your entire map. Step 1. Control the pace of your reaction. In every power game, the one who loses composure first loses the ground. When attacked, you might want to strike back immediately. But remember, the one who controls the tempo is the one who shapes the story. A CEO once told me, "I've never lost my job for staying silent too long, but I almost lost my company for answering too quickly." Where are you right now? Have you ever reacted too soon and regretted it later? In history, General Hannibal always let his enemies advance first, then struck back only when they began to lose their rhythm. He knew, whoever controls time controls the outcome. Step 2. Keep a blind zone around your personal life. If people know too much about your schedule, your relationships, or your thoughts, they can predict and break your plans before they even start. Keep 20% of your life untouchable. No posting online. No casual talk at cafes. Mystery is a shield. Are you letting others know too much about you? Napoleon once ordered his troops to take a longer route, just to mislead enemy spies. When your opponent doesn't know where you are, they can't prepare. Step 3. Strike when the other side is weakest. Napoleon always waited until his enemy was exhausted before delivering the final blow. You should too. Don't waste energy fighting someone at their peak. Watch until you see a gap they can't cover. In business, Warren Buffett once let a rival buy into a bad investment, only to acquire it later at a much lower price. Will you have the patience to wait until your opponent exposes their own weakness? Step 4. Separate emotion from action. This is the hardest part. We often get caught up in emotions when provoked. But true power comes when you make decisions as if you were playing chess. Each move based on long-term gain, not short-term anger. Can you ignore an insult today to claim a position they can't touch tomorrow? Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If you are disturbed, ask yourself, is this worth the loss of my peace?" Step 5. Leave while you're still on top. Most people think winning means staying the longest. The wise know victory means leaving before your value starts to erode. Alexander the Great ended many campaigns right in the middle of great victories because he knew staying longer only gave his enemies a chance to strike back. And you? Do you have the discipline to walk away from the table while they're still calling your name? A cold strategy is not about living in isolation or fighting the world. It's about protecting your position. In a game where most people lose by reacting too soon, revealing too much, or staying too long. And when you start applying these principles, you'll realize power is not about winning every battle. It's about choosing which battles are worth entering. In 1513, Machiavelli sat down to write The Prince. After losing power and nearly losing his life, he didn't write for those living in comfort. He wrote for those who understood that power is fragile and that a single mistake can push you into the abyss. Let's start with a story from the battlefield. The Battle of Cannae, 216 BC, Hannibal versus Rome. Instead of attacking head-on, Hannibal pretended to be weak, drawing the Roman army deep into the center of his formation. When they thought they were winning, Hannibal suddenly encircled them from both flanks, sealing their escape. The result: over 50 Roman soldiers killed in a single day. This was more than a military victory. It was proof of a principle: let others believe they're ahead, and then close the door behind them. Have you ever used this strategy in everyday life? Pretending to be weak just to make others careless. In business, the principle still lives. A small company may yield market share early to a competitor, allowing them to grow overconfident, spending heavily on ads and expansion. When the rival's funds run dry and their product quality slips, the smaller company launches a full-scale offensive, reclaiming the market. Warren Buffett once said, "The best way to win is to wait for others to make mistakes." In personal life, this strategy works just as well. I know a man who was passed over for a promotion by the very person he had helped. Instead of getting angry, he stayed silent. He kept contributing to major projects, but worked directly with senior leadership. 2 years later, when his rival was caught in a fraud scandal and lost the position, he became the only trusted choice to replace him. Do you think that was luck or calculated patience? History offers another example. The Battle of Austerlitz, 1805, Napoleon versus the Russian-Austrian coalition. He deliberately left a strategic position undefended, luring the Allies into attacking the weak spot. Once they poured in, Napoleon closed both ends, splitting and destroying them piece by piece. This victory wasn't just about strength. It was about making the enemy believe they had won until the very last moment. What's the common thread in all these stories? No one won by reacting instantly. They won because they knew when to let the opponent dig their own hole and when to close the lid. Ask yourself, is there a moment in your life when waiting just a little longer could have changed everything? Have you ever lost an opportunity because you were too eager to prove you were right? Power doesn't always come from action. Sometimes it comes from the ability to sit still until the board tilts in your favor. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "The one who knows patience will decide the moment of victory." The question is, do you have the patience to sit and watch, even when every instinct in you is screaming to act? Machiavelli would say, "Let others open the door and lock themselves inside with their own hands." People hate uncertainty more than anything. When they don't know what's going to happen, the mind starts building the worst-case scenarios. And in that moment, they will destroy themselves. Imagine you send an important email and don't get a reply right away. An hour passes. You think, maybe they're busy. A day passes. You start to doubt. Is something wrong with me? 3 days later, you've written an entire list of negative reasons in your head, most of which have nothing to do with the truth. Have you ever felt that? Waiting and letting your imagination pull you deeper. This is how the Machiavellian creates someone else's emotional collapse. By letting an information gap last just long enough for the opponent to lose track of the line between reality and imagination. In history, Sun Tzu used this principle. When facing a much larger army, he had his troops set up camp right in front of the enemy, but didn't attack. Day after day, the enemy slept in fear, lost their appetite, couldn't rest, until their spirit was drained. When they no longer had the strength to fight, Sun Tzu gave the order to attack. In relationships, this gap is even more powerful. When someone familiar suddenly goes silent, your mind will work relentlessly to fill that silence. You start recalling every detail, every word, trying to find the cause. But in doing so, you're pouring all your attention and energy into them, exactly as they intended. I know an international negotiator who always used the leave the room tactic at the critical moment. When talks were at their peak, instead of countering, he would stand up, walk out slowly, leaving the other side with numbers and terms unfinished. In 90% of cases, When he returned, the other side had already lowered their demands or added concessions, just to fill the gap his silence created. Political history has seen the same move. During the Cold War, an American diplomat recalled, when the Soviets made an unfavorable demand, the US side simply smiled, looked down at the papers, and stayed silent for nearly a minute. The silence dragged on so long that the Soviets broke it themselves by adjusting the proposal in America's favor. The point is, emotional collapse rarely comes from a direct attack. It happens because the opponent is left alone with their fear and imagination. Do you remember the last time someone stayed silent with you for too long? What did you think during that wait? And wasn't it true that by the time you saw them again, you were softer, more willing to agree? Just to end the discomfort. The information gap is an invisible battlefield. The average person runs when they don't know what's going on. The Machiavellian stays silent and lets others destroy themselves from the inside. A strategy is only truly powerful when it stops being a strategy and becomes instinct. To get there, you must reset who you are. Ordinary people see silence, patience, or emotional control as skills to use in special situations. The Machiavellian turns them into a part of their identity. They don't try to be silent. They are silence. They don't try to control emotions. They are control. The question is, how do you rebuild yourself to that level? Step 1. Change how you see yourself. If you still call yourself someone easy to offend or a hothead, you will keep acting according to that label. Machiavelli would tell you to erase the old label and replace it with short, cold, heavy words. The observer, the one who chooses the moment, the one who never gets pulled out of position. In history, Roman Emperor Hadrian was known for remaining calm even when provoked in front of the court. He saw himself as a stone wall, immovable. Have you ever given yourself a new label to change how people treat you? Step 2. Train slow reflexes. Whenever you get a message, a provocation, or an urgent request, do not reply right away. Count slowly in your head. Take a sip of water. Shift your attention to a small task. By doing this, you train your brain to live with the gap, so it doesn't rush to fill it. Steve Jobs was famous for never answering immediately in tense meetings. He would stay silent, pace around, and only decide once everyone had revealed all their thoughts and weaknesses. Step 3. Build a public image aligned with your strategy. If you want others to be cautious when approaching you, let them get used to a version of you that speaks little, shows little emotion, but notices everything. The Romans used to say, the one who knows less will speak more. The one who knows more will speak less. Which one do you want to be? Think back to the last time you stayed silent in a meeting. When you finally spoke, didn't every eye turn toward you? Step 4. Create an environment that reinforces your identity. If you're always surrounded by people who rush, complain, or overreact, you'll be dragged into their pace. Find groups and relationships where calm and mystery are valued. In Japanese history, samurai didn't just train with the sword. They practiced the tea ceremony to steady their minds before battle. Step 5. Be patient with yourself. A new identity doesn't form after a week of trying. It's carved into you, after hundreds of situations, when you choose silence over speaking, observation over reacting, walking away over staying. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer applying a strategy. You are the strategy. Others will sense it the moment you enter the room, before you say a single word. Are you ready? To become the person whose very presence changes the entire game. There are moments in life where power doesn't come from answering, but from not answering right away. When someone asks you a question, expecting a quick reaction, and you don't respond, the entire balance of power begins to shift. Picture yourself in a meeting. A colleague asks, "So what do you think about this plan?" Every eye turns toward you. Most people would answer immediately, just to avoid the awkward silence. But you simply nod, take a few seconds, even several seconds, to think. The whole room starts waiting. And in that moment, you are the one controlling the room's rhythm. Have you noticed? When a great leader answers slowly, others feel the answer carries more weight? Not because the content is different, but because of how it's delivered. An ordinary statement, if wrapped in anticipation, can carry the weight of a declaration. In business, this is a tactic to raise your value. You don't give the answer immediately. You let that space make the other side wonder. The waiting creates demand, and demand creates power. Think back to a time you texted someone and had to wait all day for a reply. While waiting, what did your mind do? It started analyzing, predicting, asking, what are they thinking? What happened? That gap turned a simple message into an important event in your mind. Have you been in that situation? And if you reversed the roles, you'd know you could make others feel exactly the same. In personal life, this tactic works just as well. Say a friend or a partner asks, "Are you free this weekend?" Instead of quickly saying yes, you pause, think, or even say, "Let me check my schedule." That pause makes them consider the value of your time. And when you agree, it's no longer obvious. It becomes a privilege. Diplomatic history has seen this too. At the Yalta Conference in 1945, Stalin often delayed responding to proposals from Churchill and Roosevelt. The delay forced them to adjust their plans, just to get a nod from the Soviet side. This slowness is not laziness or indecision. It's a silent message. I'm not moving to your rhythm. You will have to move to mine. And once others have to move to your rhythm, the power has shifted. The problem is, most people fear silence. They fill it with extra words, long explanations. But Machiavelli understood that the right silence is the strongest statement. Imagine you're negotiating. The other side makes an offer. You don't react. You just sit there, eyes steady, silent. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then they break the silence themselves by improving their offer. You've said nothing, yet you've won. In life, there are moments when slowing down is actually moving faster. The question is, do you have the nerve to sit in silence when everyone else is rushing to fill it? If you can learn that, you'll see sometimes power doesn't come from what you say, but from what you choose not to say. There's an unwritten rule that every powerful person understands. Whoever controls the pace controls the outcome. Almost every power game, from negotiations to politics to personal relationships, is a battle over speed. Are you setting the tempo, or just running to keep up with someone else's? Picture yourself negotiating a contract. The other side wants to sign today. Their pace is fast, relentless, pressuring you to decide instantly. If you play to their rhythm, you're on the defensive. But if you slow it down, pause the meeting, or ask for more time to think, the control begins to shift. In business, Machiavelli would never let others hold the clock for him. He knew the impatient always make mistakes. Let the other side grow restless. When they have to wait, they expose weaknesses. History gives us a clear example. In World War II, General Eisenhower delayed the Normandy invasion for several days, waiting for favorable weather and peak troop morale. That patience turned day into the war's turning point. You see, speed isn't always the goal. The real question is, who's holding the rhythm? In personal life, pace is also a weapon. Have you noticed? When someone replies to your message too quickly, your perception of their value drops. But when they respond slowly, you think more, expect more. Deliberate slowness is the art of pulling others into your orbit. Example: a famous real estate broker once said, "I've never signed a deal on the first day of negotiations, not because I needed more information, but because I wanted them to sleep on it. By the next morning, they were always weaker." Power doesn't lie in moving fast. It lies in making others wait for you. This law also applies to meetings. If you speak the moment you're asked, you reveal you're playing to someone else's timing. But if you regulate the pace, slowing down at strategic points, the whole room will feel your authority. The key is that your pace must have purpose. Slow, not out of laziness, but to build silent pressure. Fast, not out of recklessness, but to strike while they're unprepared. Machiavelli would say, "Power is a double-edged knife. Hold it by the handle, and you control it. Hold it by the blade, and it cuts you." Pace is that handle. So, from today, whenever you enter any game, ask yourself, who's controlling the tempo? And if it's not me, how will I take it back? Will you leave as a loser? Or turn your departure into the final killing blow of power? Here's a truth most men and women never have the courage to admit. You don't lose respect in one explosive moment. You lose it in the wrong silences, in the needless self-justifications, in the times you stayed when you should have walked away. Each of those moments is a small cut into your image. And by the time you realize it, the statue has been worn down so much, no one sees the original value anymore. The Machiavellian doesn't let that happen. They don't argue to win respect back. They keep it by never giving anyone the chance to take it in the first place. And if they must leave, they leave when their power is at its peak. Remember this: the right exit is stronger than winning an argument. Example from business. Some CEOs end meetings mid-discussion, leaving everyone arguing, without a single explanation. Just a calm look, and the words, "This meeting is over." In that moment, they're not just leaving, they're ending the entire debate. In personal relationships, walking away from a conversation when the other person is losing their temper leaves a deeper mark than any comeback could. You turn yourself into a mystery, and mystery is always worth more than predictable clarity. Political history proves this too. In 1960, during a tense United Nations session, the French delegate suddenly walked out while the Soviet speech was at its peak. The move forced the entire international press to focus on one question: why did he leave? And that speculation made his silent message stronger than any rebuttal. Question for you: when was the last time you walked away while still on top? If the answer is never, you may have already missed your strongest weapon. Machiavelli would whisper, "The one in power doesn't need to prove anything. They just walk away and let others wonder." So, from now on, turn every exit into a statement. No noise, no explanations, just a silence, deep enough, that they remember you, longer than any words you could have said. And if you want to turn leaving into an art of power manipulation, remember, the key is not slamming the door shut, but letting it close, slowly, so they have to open it themselves to come find you. Respect is not something you ask for. It's something you keep by never giving anyone the chance to take it. You've seen the Machiavellian doesn't win by speaking more, but by knowing when to stay silent, when to observe, and when to walk away. If you remember only one thing from this video, remember this. The moment you choose to walk away, while they're still calling your name, that's when your image becomes untouchable. But power isn't only in leaving. It's also in making others fear losing you. In the next video, we'll go deep into the Machiavellian strategy to make people value every moment they have you in the game and worry every second when you're no longer there. Click over now, because if you don't learn this today, tomorrow, you might be replaced without ever knowing why.